In the vast Pacific Ocean, a Soviet helicopter makes a pass over Glomar Explorer. The mission director dispatches crew to the bow. Then he tells the officer in charge to destroy the materials and protect the control room at any cost. On the 8th of March 1968, a Soviet Golf II class diesel-powered ballistic missile submarine, the K-129, with 98 sailors on board, suffered a catastrophic event and was lost in the Pacific. The K-129 was 100 meters in length and carried 3 R-21 nuclear missiles in its sail or conning tower and 2 nuclear torpedoes at the bow. The R-21 missile, also called SSN-5 by the US, has a range of 700 nautical miles and was a cutting-edge technology for the time. The sub, with a hull number 722, was supposed to make radio contact with its Kamchatka-based commander when it arrived on station, but K-129 missed its scheduled check-ins and failed to reply to communication attempts. The submarine was reported missing in the 3rd week of March. In April 1968, the Soviet Pacific Fleet deployed its air and sea assets to the North Pacific Ocean to search for the missing submarine. They focused on the patrol routes used by the Soviet submarines. According to US intelligence, this Soviet deployment in the Pacific looked like a response to the loss of a submarine. US SOSUS naval facilities in the North Pacific were alerted and asked to review acoustic records from March 1968 to identify any unusual signal. SOSUS is a network of acoustic sensors or hydrophone arrays that listen for submarines and other underwater acoustic events at distances of hundreds of miles. Low-frequency sounds travel great distances with minimal loss. They're picked up by hydrophone arrays, recorded, and transmitted to a shore station for analysis. The source of the signal can be triangulated using 3 or more hydrophone arrays in different locations. On the 8th of March, 4 Air Force AFTAC hydroacoustic stations in the Pacific and a SOSUS array in Alaska detected the acoustic signatures of 2 destructive events recorded at 11:59 and 47 seconds, which resembled the implosion of a pressure hull. AFTAC, or Air Force Technical Applications Center hydroacoustic recorders, were originally deployed to detect Soviet nuclear detonations and are 10 times more sensitive than SOSUS arrays. The AFTAC and SOSUS system triangulated the location to within 5 nautical miles of the coordinates 40.1 degrees north and 179.9 degrees east at a depth of around 5,000 meters and hundreds of miles away from where the Soviet Navy had been searching. In July 1968, the US Navy conducts Operation Sand Dollar. They deploy the nuclear submarine USS Halibut from Pearl Harbor to investigate the coordinates and locate the wreck of the missing Russian submarine. Halibut is the only US Navy submarine equipped with deep submergence search equipment. It uses a 3.7 meter, 1.8 ton towed sonar array called the Fish, which has a number of cameras, strobe lights, and sonar to map the extreme depths of the ocean floor. The Fish takes photos of the bottom at random intervals, and the images are evaluated by the crew. On the 20th of August 1968, after searching a grid pattern for 3 weeks, Halibut locates the wreck of K-129, broken into 2 pieces at a depth of 5,000 meters, 1,560 nautical miles northwest of Oahu, Hawaii. The exact location of the wreck remains an official secret of the United States intelligence services. The Halibut spends the next several weeks taking close-up photographs of every feature of the K-129 wreck. At the end of the mission, the Halibut has more than 20,000 images, which earns the Halibut a special classified presidential unit citation. The images of K-129 are sent to the National Photographic Interpretation Center for the CIA to analyze. They conclude that the nuclear missile in the number 3 missile tube is most likely intact. In the last months of 1968 and early 1969, technical representatives of the Department of Defense and the CIA discussed the possibility of retrieving parts of K-129. The submarine offers an intriguing treasure of information, and the intelligence community considers the benefits of such a costly and risky undertaking. There's an opportunity to recover the cryptographic equipment and codebooks, an R-21 missile with its nuclear warhead, the navigation system, fire control system, and other parts used to make Soviet submarines. If they can recover the technology, the US can enhance its own detection capabilities by learning how K-129's sonar system works, or how the submarine maintains its silence. And the US wants a competitive edge in the nuclear arena, which K-129 might give them. To make sure the salvage operation remains a secret, the covert or black operation is given to the CIA rather than the Navy. In April, the CIA is given an order to study the possibilities of recovering significant components from the sunken submarine over the coming years. The CIA established Project Azorian under the special projects headed by John Parangosky, or Mr. P, and his deputy Ernest Zeke Zelmer, a World War II submarine officer who will run the day-to-day operations. With President Nixon's seal of approval, the CIA director puts all information about Project Azorian in a top-secret security compartment named Jennifer. Access is given to a limited number of people in the White House and the US intelligence community. To carry out the mission without the Soviet Union interfering either diplomatically or physically, the operation has to be top secret. Mr. P gathers a small task force of engineers and technicians to come up with a plan to recover K-129. He also enlists the help of 3 contractors with security clearance who specialize in structures, naval architecture, and sensors. The task force considered 3 basic categories of lift concepts for the project. Total brute force or direct lift is the first method, which uses enormous floating winches with wire ropes that can raise between 2,000 and 2,200 tons of weight from the bottom. Using a string of connecting pipes like an oil rig uses to drill is another suggestion, which they reject quite quickly because it's hard to imagine how the heavy pipes could be deployed or retrieved along with raising something heavier like a portion of a submarine's hull. Next, they look at a trade ballast or buoyancy concept to weight or ballast a buoyant material and send it to the bottom. The ballast is dropped on the bottom and traded for the weight of the submarine, allowing the positive buoyancy material to free the submarine from the bottom and lift it to the surface. And at depth, generation of buoyancy is the final idea. They talk about creating a chemical reaction that generates gas at depth, then capturing the gas in lift bags to create enough positive buoyancy to raise the submarine. The task force realizes the 2 buoyancy concepts won't work. Compressed gas expands as it rises, leading to an uncontrolled ascent. The submarine could crash into the recovery ship or surface in full view of the Soviet Navy. By July 1970, the heavy lift design emerges as the preferred concept, but they still need to work out how to actually lift it. Over the next 3 months, Mr. P and his team work out that the only feasible way to lift the 1,750-ton Soviet submarine from a depth of 5,000 meters is to slip a specially constructed pipe string around the submarine, then slowly raise it to the surface using heavy-duty winches mounted on a large ship, at least 172 meters long and 32 meters wide. The US government is concerned that the project can leave them open to accusations of piracy if the Soviets find out about the covert submarine salvage operation. US military or intelligence agencies can't be seen by spy satellites or aircraft flying overhead, so they decide the operation must appear to be civilian to hide their involvement. To create a credible cover story for constructing such a large offshore vessel and deep water recovery technology, they decide that the mission will be framed as a deep-sea mining expedition to mine manganese nodules from the ocean floor. Manganese nodules are hard, compact minerals that contain important metals and are found in large quantities on the seafloor. The CIA approaches the eccentric billionaire Howard Hughes to act as the alleged mastermind behind the mining operation, because his group of privately held engineering companies don't answer to the Securities Exchange Commission, or stockholders. Hughes is renowned for undertaking unusual projects like constructing the massive wooden aircraft Spruce Goose. In November 1971, after more than 3 years of planning, construction begins on the 50,000-ton, 189-meter long, 35-meter wide Hughes Global Marine Explorer in Chester, Pennsylvania, under the supervision of the CIA. In Redwood City, a team works on assembling the claw or capture vehicle named Clementine, which will be hidden inside the world's largest submersible barge, the Hughes mining barge HMB-1. A year later, in November 1972, the Hughes Glomar Explorer is launched with 3 distinctive features: a massive A-frame, an unusually large well area, and a tall derrick 72 meters above the waterline. Over the next 5 months, it's fitted with well gates for its submersible barge, operating equipment, and machinery. The Glomar Explorer is fitted with a dynamic positioning system that enables the vessel to maintain a fixed position above the recovery site. In April 1973, the Glomar Explorer begins sea trials in the Atlantic Ocean. 4 months later, in August, after completing its East Coast trials, the Glomar prepares for its 50-day, 12,700 nautical mile journey to Long Beach, California. At 35 meters wide, it's too wide to pass through the Panama Canal. After a month at sea, sailing around Cape Horn, at the end of September, the Glomar quietly slips into Long Beach port. Relief crew and more than 24 customized vans full of equipment are loaded under the cover of darkness. A darkroom, radioactive waste handling tools to examine the contents of K-129, and the nerve center for the covert operation. A total of 178 crew members make up the full complement for the mission, including the mission director and his team for the recovery operations, technical staff, and the ship's captain. Although the ship captain is in command of the vessel, the mission director is the senior command authority, and he is responsible for the success of the mission, its security, and the cover story. In the spring of 1974, the submerged barge HMB-1 meets up with the Glomar Explorer off the coast of Catalina Island in Southern California. HMB-1 opens its roof, and the Glomar opens the bottom of its hollow moon pool and takes the capture vehicle Clementine on board. The HMB-1 detaches and returns to Redwood City without the transfer being noticed. From January to May 1974, Glomar Explorer runs more system tests and the crew practice working with Clementine. In June, representatives from Hughes Company, Summer Corporation, take possession of the Glomar Explorer in an offshore ceremony outside Long Beach's 3-mile limit. The acceptance ceremony is recorded and published to strengthen the cover story, and the same day, Glomar Explorer sets off for the recovery mission in the Northwest Pacific. On the 4th of July 1974, the Glomar Explorer arrives at the recovery site. The ship deploys 6 transponders to form a grid and monitor the precise location of the ship and automatic station keeping at the recovery site. The next day, 2 Wave Rider buoys are deployed and the automatic station keeping system is calibrated. 4 days later, the well gates are opened and a sonar is dropped 3 miles down to locate the wreck, which the team expect will take a few days. While the search team locate the wreck, the recovery team practice the pipe handling system used to deploy Clementine. Every day, 549 meters of steel pipes are strung together and sent down the well and brought back up. Clementine will be lowered and raised on a pipe string like the ones used on oil drilling rigs. So the recovery team practice creating a drill string with Clementine, the claw, at the end and then bringing it back up. Section by section, pairs of 9.1 meter steel pipes are strung together to lower Clementine through a hole in the middle of the Glomar Explorer. When they successfully capture the submarine in Clementine, they reverse the process and the pipes are pulled and removed one at a time. The salvage target object is drawn into the moon pool at the center of the vessel, the doors of which will be closed to form a floor for the salvage section. This makes it possible for the entire salvage operation to take place underwater, out of sight of other ships, planes, or spy satellites. After 3 days, they suspend operations because of the large swell produced by an incoming typhoon. The swell in the moon pool reaches a height of 3 meters, while the vessel rides 6.7 meter waves. Then, a British merchant ship, Belle Hudson, arrives on the scene and requests medical assistance for one of its crew. During open radio transmission, the Belle Hudson asks what activity the Glomar Explorer is engaged in. They respond with their cover story, that they're testing a prototype deep ocean mining machine. And because Glomar's cover is a civilian, commercial endeavor, they follow maritime convention to offer medical assistance. By the 14th of July, the weather subsides, and serious cracks are discovered in both the forward port and aft starboard docking leg guide structures, which are difficult to repair. The team don't know if the cracks can be repaired properly before there's more damage in the stormy seas, which could compromise the mission. The mission director orders the team to weld the cracks and continue the mission. On the 17th of July, the Glomar Explorer gets a message to say that a Soviet missile range instrumentation ship, the Chazma, is heading towards their location with an ETA of 0400 the following day. The 140-meter Chazma is based in Petropavlovsk, the home base of K-129. The Soviets may have picked up the radio exchange between Glomar and Belle Hudson, and they've come to investigate Glomar's presence in the area. The Glomar crew rushes through the repairs. The mission director orders the crew to pile crates on Glomar's helicopter deck and cover them with canvas to prevent the Soviets from landing their helicopter on the deck. In the early morning, fog conditions limit the visibility to less than 5 miles, and by 0800, Chazma is 2 nautical miles from the Glomar Explorer. Chazma draws closer, allowing Soviet personnel to take photographs with a binocular camera. Their helicopter is launched and heads towards Glomar Explorer, making several passes and taking photographs from all angles. The mission director sends several crew members to the bow of the Glomar to discourage any attempt by the Soviet helicopter to hover and lower personnel, but the helicopter returns to Chazma. The Glomar Explorer is vulnerable, sitting alone in the vast Pacific Ocean without any close support from friendly forces. The mission director orders the officer in charge to be ready to destroy any sensitive materials if the Soviets attempt to board the ship. A team is assigned to defend the control room at all costs, at least long enough to destroy the materials. At 16:30, Chazma starts signaling the Glomar using a light signal. The Soviet ship passes around 500 meters astern and starts to circle Glomar, which is stationary in the water. Chazma crosses the bow of the Glomar Explorer at a distance of around 1,000 meters. At 17:11, Chazma radios Glomar in Russian and asks if they've heard the transmission. An American mining ship wouldn't have any Russian speakers, so this is probably a feeble attempt to work out if Glomar will slip up and reply that they have received the message, letting on that they know more Russian than they probably should. Glomar ignores the radio call. At 17:30, Chazma's helicopter takes off and makes several passes taking pictures of the ship. Half an hour later, the helicopter completes its work and lands back on board Chazma. The Soviet ship then contacts Glomar in English and says, "We are on our way home and heard your foghorn. What are you doing here?" Chazma wasn't in hearing range during the fog, another fishing expedition. Glomar replies, "We're conducting ocean mining tests, deep ocean mining tests." Chazma asks, "What kind of vessel are you?" To which Glomar replies, "A deep ocean mining vessel." The Soviets ask what kind of equipment is on board, and they reply, "We have experimental deep ocean mining equipment on board." The Soviets ask, "How much time will you be here?" And the Glomar answers, "We expect to finish testing in 2 to 3 weeks." The Soviet ship signs off with, "I wish you all the best." At 2100 hours, Chazma leaves the recovery site and sails back to Petropavlovsk. 4 days later, on the morning of the 22nd of July, another Soviet naval vessel, a 47-meter salvage tug SB-10, arrives at the scene but keeps a distance of around 3 miles while the Glomar continues to search for K-129. SB-10 gradually comes closer until it passes within 60 meters of Glomar. Almost 50 crew members are on deck of the SB-10, many with cameras so that they can take pictures of the Glomar Explorer. By 2300, the SB-10 clears the immediate area but stays a few miles from the mining expedition. The Glomar continues the recovery mission with several disruptions from the heavy lift sensors and controls of the recovery system. On the 28th of July, the SB-10 returns to a distance of about 5 miles. But visibility is less than a mile in dense fog, so they're only spotted on radar. Then the team find what they're looking for. The high-resolution sonar picks up the K-129. When the cameras are close enough to view the submarine, the mission director asks the team to set up several TV monitors around the ship for the crew to see what they've been looking for. The submersible claw, Clementine, is positioned over the forward section of K-129, where the bow, conning tower, and nuclear missiles are located. Clementine's claws swoop down to grab the forward section. The seafloor is harder than they expected, and additional force is needed to drive the claw arms further into the sand. The claws are made of a miraging steel, which is known for its exceptional strength and durability, but it's not as ductile or flexible as other types of steel. At low temperatures, like in these deep ocean depths, it becomes brittle. A portion of the claw starts to fracture and alarms sound out. At night, as the crew works slowly to secure the submarine for lifting under the cover of darkness, the Soviet SB-10 tug draws closer to Glomar. Every time the SB-10 maneuvers uncomfortably close, the Glomar's crew shines a searchlight on the tug and it backs off. In the morning, the SB-10 circles the Glomar and their crew take measurements of the height and distance of the mining ship using a sextant and an alidade. Finally, after 3 days, the recovery team secures K-129 in Clementine's claws, and the team start to check their system to make sure Clementine can bring up the submarine section. At 2200 on the 1st of August, the K-129 submarine is hauled off the seafloor and the recovery crew gradually raise Clementine. After raising the submarine over 2,000 meters from the seafloor, several of Clementine's fractured grabber arms break, and nearly 30 meters, or 2/3 of the K-129 section, sinks back to the ocean floor. The sail area and center portion, which houses the missiles, its fire control system, and potentially some cryptography technology, falls to the ocean floor. Only the 12-meter bow section is safe. At 21:35 on the 8th of August, after almost a week of slowly lifting the submarine, only a few pairs of steel pipes remain before the K-129 bow section breaks the waterline. The Soviet SB-10 approaches the Glomar again, less than 100 meters on the starboard or right side. Glomar signals SB-10 to stay clear. Soviet ship sounds its whistle 3 times in quick succession, which means it's going astern, and then it backs off. The SB-10 crew members wave to the Glomar, and then it sails off towards Petropavlovsk. At 22:38, the SB-10 fades from Glomar's radar screen, ending the Soviets' 13 days of close surveillance. At almost the same time, K-129's bow is lifted into the moon pool along with some manganese nodules for good measure. On the 9th of August 1974, the Glomar Explorer heads to Hawaii after somewhat successfully accomplishing its mission. The specifics of the parts that were recovered are classified as top secret. The Soviets believe the US recovered torpedoes with nuclear warheads, operational manuals, codebooks, and coding machines. In September 1974, 6 bodies were recovered from the bow section, but because of radioactive contamination, they were buried at sea in a steel chamber with full military honors about 90 nautical miles southwest of Hawaii. In October 1992, a videotape of the burial ceremony was given to Russian President Boris Yeltsin, and the relatives of the crew members were shown the video some years later. Project Azorian was kept secret until February 1975, when the Los Angeles Times ran a story about a break-in at the office of Summer Corporation from June 1974, and a document about the Glomar was stolen. Project Matador was in planning stages at the time, a follow-up recovery plan to go back for the section that fell, but the plan was abandoned because of the news coverage. The success of Project Azorian was difficult to assess. The CIA refused to declassify any information about the massive cost overruns, which were estimated at over $500 million, which would cost $3.3 billion today. The mining ship cover story was so convincing that it sparked global interest in deep-sea mining.
To watch another complex salvage, click the video on screen now.